when I was asked to be on this panel and to speak here, so I started writing. Well, I wrote, by the time I got done, I had 16 pages, which was too much. That Brian said I could not read all 16 pages here. So we do have a copy of this on the Urban Air website. I also have about 15 copies with me if you would like to look at it and read it. What I'm going to try and do here is give a bit of a summary of what's in here and give you a closing proposition that I think is valuable to consider, because what have we learned? What is the largest non-competitive business in the United States today? Anyone want to take a jump at that one? Government. Government is, they produce no revenue. They produce no wealth. And then they confiscate it from those of us that do. So what's the effect on agriculture from that? Kind of about everything. And what's the second largest industry in the world? Energy. Big oil. Both of these in collaboration together, they incentivize the least amount of competition. In our case, with government and big oil, they block competition. Why in the post 9/11 time that we're in now, do we continue to make countries that hate us wealthy? What about America First that President Trump keeps talking about? What's that about if rural America is not included? Shouldn't some of the money exported to buy oil stay here and be reinvested in our rural economy? Yes, we have a robust export right now, but we're lucky we have that. Without that, we would be in a big challenge. And we're dealing with trade wars now with Canada, with Mexico, Europe, China. What's the currency for all of those trade wars? Agriculture, ag products. That's what we export the most of. That's what we are. We can feed the world, but we can also fuel the world. We're seeing huge increases in our production of all of our crops and our efficiencies and everything else. We can continue to do both if we're allowed to. Most of you know, Dennis and I did not get into this business to see what we could get out of it. We got into this business because we saw an opportunity for sustainable agriculture. Growing up on the farm, being a part of agriculture through all that time, it may sound like a nice buzzword to be saying sustainable agriculture, but what does sustainable agriculture really mean? It means markets for our crops. It means jobs in the rural community. It means money stays in our area, stays in the small towns, promotes family farming, all of the things that were near and dear to my dad and probably near and dear to a lot of you guys here in the room. And we need to, in my view, have a paradigm shift. We need to get away from the cronyists that are in Washington. You've seen it, you heard it, the amount of lobbyists that are there, the challenges we have, the manipulation of fuels and things like this, all to hold agriculture down, and the swamp that's there. Freedom can work if you let it. We need our states to work with us and go to bat for us for our product in our local areas. Rural America should not continue to live in crisis mode. We started this industry. Agriculture started this industry, and we need to take back control of our own future. History teaches government doesn't give, they just take. And that has been demonstrated in our industry time and time again. And there's four kind of key areas that I believe we are held hostage that I'll try and highlight here. Number one, as consumers, were held hostage. Big oil not only blocks better fuel, but they block better prices. One of the things to keep in mind, the last 5 recessions that we had, each of them was preceded by a rise in oil prices. Oil has gone up 20% since the beginning of this year. What does that mean? I'm not here saying we're going to have another recession. I'm just stating what history tells us. Analysts are saying, it's up because of the Iran deal. Really? Now just think about it. It's a country that hates us. It's a country that can't compete, except if maybe we're on the wrestling match. And they can hold us hostage. How asinine is that? Memorial Day 2017 to Memorial Day 2018. Price of gasoline went up 31%. At the same time, price of ethanol went down 4.5%. There's a slide in here that goes through that and shows that 70 cents that was referenced earlier gap between the price of our product and the rack price of gasoline. If in fact we were able to get some of that, if our fuel just stayed parity, why does not fuel follow fuel? Good question. But if our fuel just followed fuel, that'd be 60 cents at least more for our ethanol. What does that relate to for agriculture? That comes back to $1.50 extra value in the corn. What would that do for agriculture in the Midwest if we could garner an extra $1.50 for our corn? Be a big difference that we could expect. Big oil, on the other hand, last quarter made $8 billion. They're selling gasoline, ethanol free, no ethanol gas in Wichita, 41 cents higher than E10. Now think about that. They save 4 to 6 cents making an 85 bob gasoline compared to an 87 bob gasoline, and they charge the consumer 41 cents more to have ethanol-free gas. I don't know what your opinion of that is, but I do know in Wichita there's a lot of oil refining, and there are people that absolutely will not put ethanol in their car. Those people are going to buy ethanol-free gas no matter what it costs, and the petroleum industry can gouge them, and guess what? That's exactly what they do. Why do they do that? Because they can. So gas prices have doubled since the mid-90s. Corn prices are back to the mid-90s. My friend, that's how you make $8 billion a quarter. And again, number 2, rural America held hostage. Okay? In pre-renewable era, rural America population dropped 14%, while at the same time the national urban population went up 27%. We lost young adults at twice that rate. 4 in 10 were born into poverty. The median income of rural America was $20,000 less than the national average. Now let's roll the clock ahead to now. The income of rural America is about 10% above the national average. However, that's going to be short-lived if we do not expand our agricultural product value. We'll again lose our young talent. And if rural America goes south, the rest of the country won't be far behind. A couple of years ago, Glacial Lakes and ICM partnered to do an E30 challenge. We did that on legacy vehicles. Why did we do that? Well, we wanted to learn some stuff. We wanted to verify what we believe to be true. So far, we have driven 60 million miles on E30 with no problems. No issues, like zero, like none. And no fuel problems at all. So we wanted to answer two questions, and I believe we did. We answered the first question: can you put E30 in a legacy vehicle? Yes, you can. And number two, will you? Well, guess what? You have a choice. You still have a choice. There's E10 at those pumps, there's E20, there's E30, there's E15, there's E85, all kinds of different things that you can do so that you give the consumer the choices they want. We're not shoving E30 down anybody's throat. We're just making the option available for them. Why not? You know, and I hear a lot of people bitching about the corn price. And yet they don't demand their own product. They don't have E30 on their car, they don't have E30 in their pump. You know what I say to those people? Tough shit. Okay? Number three, taxpayers are held hostage. You know, it's why the swamp is in the business of picking winners and losers. Taxpayers lose at this game. Big oil is subsidized 7-to-1 to renewables. Freedom Fuel Foundation did a study on this, and it also is in this article. We spend 97 cents a gallon of gasoline defending the Middle East. We spend $1.73 a gallon on the cost of air pollution for health care. 89 cents on climate change, and wherever you land on climate change, I'm not here to debate that. That was their number. And 27 cents on subsidies. So even if you took climate change out, the taxpayer pays more for the gasoline than you pay at actually pay at the pump. I don't know that that's good policy either. And the foreign policy, number four, the foreign policy is held hostage. We still import 25% of the gasoline that we use, while being the mall cops of the Middle East. We need oil, they need money. All the while, we're exporting 10% of our product, as was talked about earlier, just so that we can stay in business. And with all of these trade war stuff going on, I sure as heck hope that doesn't drop off anytime soon. So what's my conclusion here? You know, I want us to be free to compete. I want this incestuous relationship of big oil and big government that has marginalized agriculture's contribution to energy independence to be put off to the side. Let's face it, we can never bring political influence to the table that big oil can, not with their 400 plus lobbyists. The game is rigged. Big oil is always in the driver's seat. You have to beg and plead just to be hogtied to the cop of the car, like the dead grandma in the movie Vacation. For those of you that are old enough to remember that, that's kind of where we're at. You know, the RFS, let's come back to that just a minute, was a successful, and it delivered 10% renewable energy nationwide. Washington cronyism has effectively blocked everything we're trying to do to get higher blends, with numerous different roadblocks and political spin. You know, I go to Brazil about every quarter. We put a plant down there and involved in that. Brazil's gasoline is E27, or it's neat, 190 proof. And they look at the two and they compare the price, and the consumer can choose what they want. Now, if ethanol was such a bad fuel and it did so much damage to the cars, why isn't Brazil a junkyard? Where's all these problems? They've got weed eaters, lawnmowers, motorcycles, cars, trucks. They've got all the same stuff we do by the same manufacturers with the same parts, and they work fine. So, you know, this president is in office because of the Midwest ag producers. and he was going to help remove some of the barriers to free market. So far, the Trump administration has done more damage than good with their hardship waivers and no action on RVP, and we're still sitting here waiting for something to happen. Our consumers are smart people. You guys are fully capable of deciding for yourselves what fuel you want to put in your car, as Watertown demonstrated. I conclude with this one proposition here that I think is key and important. Our Midwest states should demand the right to market their own fuel blends in the state without federal roadblocks. Let the free market work for the producer, the retailer, and the consumer. And you say, how can that happen? Why should, well, you know, the past administration put out a letter that said, if you want to legalize controlled substance in your state, we won't come after you. Now, smoking marijuana, growing marijuana, selling marijuana in the U.S. under federal law is still illegal, except for Colorado, now California, and a few other states, because of that letter. We're demanding that the governors join together and get that letter for agriculture for ethanol, because I believe that we can be an effective producer and marketer of our own product, especially and starting from the ground up. I'll finish with one last question to everybody that's here. And this is an ethanol conference. How many of you guys use higher blends in your cars? Thank you. Thank you. For those of you that don't, I would just say, why? We're here promoting our own product. We're out here validating that this product works. Why are we not out there promoting our own product? Why are we not actively getting after, talking to our neighbors, talking to our friends? You know, I wore a Shockers sweatshirt last night just for curiosity, and asked people what was this sweatshirt, and most of them knew Wichita State Shockers. They've done pretty good in basketball. They suck at a lot of other things, but basketball they're pretty good. And I see that in the grocery stores on the streets of Wichita, and if anybody I ask with a Shocker something on, I mean, they are happy to talk about the Wichita State Shockers. Are we that happy to talk about our stuff? Thanks.